So let's talk a little bit about how to improve sleep naturally. And so what I've got here is a list, and there are things that we're going to add to this, but what I want you to walk away with tonight are some actionable things that you can begin implementing immediately that can have profound impact on how well your body is capable of falling asleep, staying asleep, and actually getting good, deep, restful sleep. And so one of the things that in this world, in this day and age today, that people ignore because of their lifestyle, right? Or maybe they don't ignore it, but they don't address it effectively, is sunshine exposure. Now, one of the things about sunshine is when light hits your eyes, that allows you to start producing melatonin. Now, melatonin, we want it throughout the course of the day. Melatonin slowly increases, right? And then when we get to night, we should have enough melatonin, right, that it helps us fall asleep. Melatonin, we don't make it as well or efficiently if we're not getting direct sun exposure. And this exposure that needs to happen here is this exposure needs to happen on the eyes. We need the exposure on the eyes. How many of you wear sunglasses when you go outside? What you're basically doing is in an effort to protect your eyes from what most doctors would say solar damage, which most of that's nonsense. You're blocking your body's ability to actually generate melatonin when you're wearing those. So we want that sunshine exposure. That doesn't mean you look directly into the sun and burn your retina, but it does mean that take the sunglasses off and let some natural light in. Your body's designed to work in the world. It's not designed that you need to have all this gear and all this accessories in order to function in the world. And so sunshine exposure's got to be on your number one list of things to do. Now, some of you may go to work early in the dark, right? And, some times of the year, especially winter months, you're leaving to go to work and you're commuting to go to work in the dark. And then by the time you get home, it's already dark. And so in those situations, you got to find time in your day to get outside. And so maybe that's eat your lunch outside. Maybe that's go for a walk at lunch. But do something every day to get that daily sunshine exposure. The other issue is most of you probably spend way too much time indoors, don't get outside enough, whether it's computers or personal devices. And so the light that you're actually getting is not the sunshine exposure, it's this blue light from screens, this artificial blue light from screens, and that is hugely disruptive of your sleep. And a lot of times too, that blue light comes at night. Either when maybe you're watching TV or, we'll just label it PD, your personal devices, whether it's a cell phone or some type of pad of some sort, right? But you're getting that mega blue light exposure right before you're supposed to go to bed. So basically what you're doing is you're telling your eyes it's daytime, right, when it's supposed to be nighttime, and you're completely throwing your circadian rhythm off. And it's important that you minimize any blue lights before bedtime. It's important that you get plenty of sunshine throughout the course of your day. Now, another one that affects people's sleep is stress management. Now, sometimes you can control the stress in your life, and other times you can't, right? Sometimes life throws curveballs. The last 2 years, most people's lives have been a hellacious curveball, displeasant, no matter what your beliefs are. And that has been very, very stressful. The world is stressed out right now. But we have to think about it like this. Pray about the things you can't control and control the things that you know to control. And that's the best way to manage your stress. So stress management, a big part of stress management is doing everything else on this list. Because what is stress? Stress comes in three primary flavors. It comes in the form of physical stress, in the form of emotional stress, and in the form of chemical stress. So most of you know what emotional stress is, right? You hang out with the wrong people maybe, or you have bad relationships, or you go to a job you hate. It all can be very stressful. There are life stressors in relationships that are emotional. But then there's physical stress, which is either you sit too much, so there's the lack of physical stress. Remember, we need some physical stress. It's not always too much stress. Sometimes it's an absence of stress in the right place. So physical stress is important, but overtraining and too much physical stress can actually disrupt you as well. And then there's physical stress, and then there's chemical stress. And chemical stress has to do with what you eat. And so think of it as what you put in your body. The things that your body's exposed to, whether it's food, drugs, whether it's air, light, those kinds of things are biological, chemical stressors. Again, good or bad, we need some good stressors. but managing them. So if you're not drinking enough, if you're not exercising well, if you have a poor diet, right? If you're loading up on caffeine for energy, these are all forms of stress that you're contributing to, and so that's bad stress management. So when we talk about stress management, we're really talking about everything else on the list. And if you're doing all those other things well, then you're managing your stress well. And sometimes life keeps us awake at night because we need to be stressed, because there's something we need to resolve. And so remember, it's not about perfection. It's not about, although you shouldn't be going months at a time without sleep, sometimes life throws that curveball. Your brain has to process it, and it may disrupt your sleep for a few nights. That's not something you want to medicate. That's not something you want to pop, NyQuil over or take heavy drugs, because your brain, when it's trying to process, when it's trying to deal with something, you've got to give it that opportunity. And sometimes that opportunity is when you're lying down in bed at night. Good hydration. Good hydration is very, very important for stress. The electrolytes, a lot of times if you're cramping, one of the biggest signs of bad hydration is cramping. And a lot of people, this happens to a lot of people at night, especially those of you as you get older than 35, that nighttime cramping in the feet. This is a hallmark of electrolyte. Oftentimes is a hydration issue, partly because many of you are over caffeinating. Caffeine's a diuretic. Some of you are over alcoholing. Alcohol is also a diuretic. And some of you are just not drinking adequate fluid. And so you don't have great hydration, great electrolytes, and your feet start to cramp when you're lying in bed at night. You got to jump out of bed and stretch them so that they're not cramping, waking you up. And so this is, again, good hydration is very important. Now, if your feet cramp at night, one of the best things you can take for that is a mixture of calcium and magnesium. But even with this may not be the full fix, although sometimes calcium and magnesium deficiencies cause cramping, which can disrupt sleep. Poor hydration can do it too, but aggressive stimulant use will cause calcium and magnesium loss. And then we have exercise. This is especially true of women. And I hope none of you take this the wrong way, ladies, but women are cerebral creatures. And that means that a lot of their energy is spent in the brain. It's spent in the mind, milling over how to solve something maybe going on in their life, right? They process and they process and they process. It's one of the differences between men and women. Women hyper-process mentally. Men tend not to process mentally enough. So however you want to take that, guys. But women can do it to such a point that hyper-processing drives stress and disrupts their sleep. And so for women, one of the most effective ways to improve sleep is through exercise, because what that does is it will burn through some of that energy that you're using cerebrally. There will be less energy cerebrally because you're using it physically. And so this is a hallmark. I see it all the time in females who don't exercise, is they really struggle with a lack of sleep. And once we put them on an exercise program, they're out like a baby at 9 p.m. They're just boom. Their head hits the pillow. One of the things I hear a lot too from women is, my husband's head hits the pillow and he's asleep, before his neck is even relaxed, and I'm sitting there for an hour and a half or 2 hours and my mind is just spinning and churning and spinning. Ladies, you got to incorporate exercise if you're not. Now, maybe you are and you're still struggling. Let's look at some of these other things. Sleep hygiene strategies. What does that look like? A sleep hygiene strategy is, focusing on when it's bedtime, not being busy and not thinking about things that are going to stimulate your mind into a stressful situation. If you get in bed and you think about stressful things, and if you have a stressful conversation with your spouse as you're lying in bed, you're going to disrupt your ability to fall asleep, because if you stress yourself out right before bed, all the hormones of stress, right? The adrenaline, the cortisol, you're now pumping those out. Well, we don't want those when it's bedtime. We want our cortisol to be super low. We want our adrenaline to be super low as well. So sleep hygiene is, having calm and peaceful thoughts before bedtime and not engaging in that thing you wanted to talk to your husband or wife about Nighttime's not the time to have that conversation. Pick a different time where you can come together, and don't create that stress right before bed. Now, some people with type A personalities do really, really well journaling before they go to bed. And there are a number of different things you can do with journaling. Now, it's not like a diary where you write down all your daily events so much, but what some people find very helpful is they journal their to-dos. So if you've got a list of things that you need to do tomorrow and your mind is just going through those and you're thinking about those and your mind is focused on those and you're supposed to be sleeping, a lot of times writing those things down in a notepad next to your bed allows your mind to let go of those ideas so that your mind can get into a sleep mode. So some people do really well by journaling their to-dos right before you go to bed, that way again you can let your mind quit thinking about those things. Other sleep hygiene strategies would include turning off your EMF, turning off your any kind of blue light exposure that you might have, making sure that the temperature is comfortable in your bedroom, so setting that thermostat to a comfortable temperature that allows you to feel at peace in your bed, right? And so a lot of times it's cooler at night. Think of your thermostat as being set cooler at night, because what's about to happen is your body's about to heat up as it's healing, as it's repairing. Your metabolism is about to speed up and you're going to get hot under those covers. So a lot of people sleep really, really well between 70 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And so if you're setting your thermostat higher, then that might be disruptive of your sleep as well. So those are just some hygiene strategies to think about before getting in bed. Then we got diet. And one of the mistakes people make right before bed is they eat a big amount of food. And if they're having any kind of GI problems, that can be irritative. Now, on the contrary, you might eat a meal and find that all the blood leaves your head and goes to your gut, and you're like out like a baby because your digestion is good. So, this diet could go either way. Either eating before bed might be helpful, or not eating anywhere near bed, depending on what your history is with your stomach and your GI tract. But it's a smart thing to know where you stand there and just abide by how your body responds. Reducing caffeine and other stimulants. So don't drink coffee before you go to bed. A lot of people have like an evening cup of coffee. Bad idea. I mean, caffeine's a stimulant. It's gonna shoot up your adrenaline. It's gonna make it really hard for you to sleep. Alcohol is another one that really can be disruptive of your sleep. What alcohol does, it makes you sleepy in the moment, but causes you to wake up in the middle of the night. So you really want to, if you're struggling with sleep, especially if you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're drinking that glass of wine at dinner every night, that may be part of your problem. A lot of people want to relax with that wine, but then they end up waking up sometime at 2 or 3 in the morning in a deeper sweat as their body tries to detoxify that alcohol. So be careful around alcohol. Other stimulants would be things like chocolate. Obviously, you don't want to eat a bunch of chocolate before bedtime. Chocolate has caffeine in it as well. So anything, tea, coffee, chocolate, anything higher in caffeine, you really want to look at trying to eliminate right before you go to bed. Now, something else you can do, we talk about diet and what you can and what you shouldn't eat, but some foods you can consume that are higher in tryptophan and melatonin can help improve your sleep if you eat an hour or so before bedtime. We'll come to those in just a minute. And then I also mentioned a cooler room temperature, making sure the temperature, whether it's cooler or not, making sure it's comfortable for you. And sometimes, with spouses, you guys may disagree. So you've got to figure that one out and come to some type of negotiation so that you can both sleep as well. But these are all strategies that you could do right now. You could implement tonight, and you could make yourself feel a lot better if you're struggling here. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.